There is only one state that will determine who wins the 2024 presidential election, the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's 19 electoral college votes will likely be critical in determining who wins the presidency. And to illustrate that fact, let's go on this electoral college map. Now, as you can see, Donald Trump has 235 electoral college votes, and Kamala Harris has 226 electoral college votes. Now, these states that are generally filled in are generally considered pretty solid states for both sides. Now, Kamala Harris might argue that North Carolina is in play, while Donald Trump could make the assertion that Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, and Maine are all considered competitive. But this is what generally people agree on, 226 for Kamala Harris and 235 for Donald Trump. Now let's say that Donald Trump wins the state of Pennsylvania. That boosts him all the way up to 254 electoral college votes, only 16 away from 270 needed to win the presidency. And guess what? Where he can end up getting that 270 electoral college votes? The state of Georgia. He is currently leading in Georgia polling by about 1.5%, if not a bit more than that. Not to mention that polling consistently underestimates Donald Trump, at least between 2016 and 2020, suggesting that the state of Georgia in this scenario is very likely to go red, and with that, Donald Trump takes the presidency. Okay, so what about Kamala Harris? Well, if Kamala Harris wins the state of Pennsylvania, she'll probably win the state of Michigan because Michigan consistently votes to the left of Pennsylvania. Additionally, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania generally votes in the same way, and if she wins Pennsylvania, there's a good probability that she'll also carry the state of Wisconsin. And with that, she's also at 270 electoral college votes needed to win the presidency. So in today's video, I'll be determining who I believe is the favored to win the state of Pennsylvania in the 2024 presidential election. Now, as a good starting point for today's analysis, let's first look at the polling in Pennsylvania. Right now, Kamala Harris enjoys a 1% lead over Donald Trump in polling here. However, as you can see, there's a lot of really competitive polling. Trump is ahead in 3 polls, Harris is ahead in 4 polls, and 4 polls shows it at the exact tie or dead even result. Now that might look good for Kamala Harris. However, do keep in mind that polling is almost never accurate, especially in the Rust Belt, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. In 2020, at this point of the election, Joe Biden was ahead by 4%, just to win the state by 1.2% in reality land. Additionally, in 2016, Hillary Clinton at this point in time was ahead of Donald Trump by 6.6%, just to lose the election to Trump in the actual general election. Things don't stop there either. In the 2020 election cycle, Joe Biden consistently maintained a lead of between 3 or 6% in the state of Pennsylvania, which is essentially outside the margin of error. But the state took days to count their ballots, and Biden only won by such a narrow margin. So you can see that polling, although it does show Kamala Harris with a narrow advantage, is not necessarily super promising for her. She probably needs a better margin than this type of number. Now let's actually look at the state and how it votes in a general type of perspective. Now in the 2020 presidential election in the state of Pennsylvania, Joe Biden won the state over Donald Trump by 1.2%. Pennsylvania ended up being the tipping point state, which means a state that ultimately decided who won the election. Now in this case, you can see that there's essentially a lot of red on this map in favor of Donald Trump and only a few spots of blue. But if you look down here in the actual ballot breakdown, you can see that Biden won 6 of the most populated counties in the state of Pennsylvania by varying margins. Now, out of Pennsylvania's 67 counties, the most populated county is Philadelphia County, which is home to roughly 10% of the state's population. Following that is Allegheny County, another very blue county, and also home to roughly 10% of the state's population. Now, Philadelphia County is very blue. It voted for Joe Biden by a margin of 64 percentage points. Now, Allegheny County is a bit less blue, with Joe Biden winning it by 20%. However, these two counties have very different dynamics. Philadelphia County, the largest county in the state by population, is shifting towards the Republican Party. Democrats used to be able to get roughly 90% of the vote in this county. They're now down to about 80%. However, Democrats have been gaining slightly in Allegheny County to kind of make up for that difference. The county used to be slightly more competitive. Now, this election cycle, I really don't expect someone like Kamala Harris to be able to overperform in Allegheny County because she's not doing that well with a lot of white voters, and minority voters are also reluctant to vote for her. However, Philadelphia's drop off for her could be quite significant because there's a lot of white working class voters who have a Democrat heritage, who consistently vote Democratic, but who are more unwilling and reluctant to vote in this election cycle, or feel like that Donald Trump is a better option because he is someone who is essentially very supported by many working class voters. Now, there are three other colored counties around Philadelphia that have a huge population: Montgomery County, Delaware County, and Chester County. So these three counties over here. These are more affluent counties. These are areas where someone like Kamala Harris, as well as any generic Democrat, could do well in. However, the fourth colored county, Bucks County, this is a county that is definitely less affluent and someone who is more white collar. A lot of white collar voters live there, and this is a more competitive county. Unlike these three counties over here, Montgomery, Chester, and Delaware County, this is a county that is more competitive and is not so left trending. Now, some of these counties, indeed, around the collar areas, especially Delaware, Chester, and Montgomery, are left trending, but if you go to some of the other blue areas of the state, you might not see that type of dynamic. Specifically, Lehigh County, Northampton County, Monroe County, Lackawanna County, Luzerne County, and Pike County. These are areas heavily trending away from the Democratic Party. If you want to know that, just look at 2016 and their trends. Focus on the counties I just mentioned, right? If you look at Northampton, that's a relatively slight trend. That's only about a 5-point trend. If you look at Carbon County, a county I didn't really mention, but this is also a county that follows that dynamic from Romney plus 7.5 to Trump plus 34. Right, these white working class voters, they heavily moved away from Democrats and in favor of Donald Trump. Monroe County, another good example. This county only voted for Hillary Clinton by 0.7%, despite voting for Obama by double digits. Pike County, again more competitive in 2012, voted for Donald Trump by 26% in 2016. Going to another county, Luzerne County, right? This was actually a Obama plus 5 county in 2012. This county shifted 20 points, if not slightly more, to about a Trump plus 18 margin in 2016. You see all of these dynamics around this area of the state. These are heavily red trending areas that Donald Trump will certainly be able to utilize to gain more votes. Now, the final area I want to be talking about is some of the rural areas. That includes some of these more sparsely populated counties, for example, Somerset County, right? Bedford County, you look at this, 30,000 votes here, 30,000 votes here, 70,000 votes here, and so on. And you think that that does not compare to be a lot compared to an area like Philadelphia County. Well, that is indeed true. However, these counties, they do stack up. If Trump is able to net, for example, let's say 16,000 votes from Indiana County, net about 6,000 votes from Potter County, and so forth, that does build up to a lot of votes, just like a vote sink like Philadelphia. Now, just like the white working class areas around Allentown, Northampton counties that I showed earlier, these rural areas, although sparsely populated, produce huge results in favor of Donald Trump. Now, you see in some of these Pennsylvania areas, for example, Crawford County, right, this was a Romney plus 20 county. This became a Trump plus almost 40 county. You go to another county like Warren County. This was a Romney plus 17 county, just to turn into Trump plus 40 county just about 4 years later. And this wasn't just a unique Pennsylvania phenomenon. This was just a Trump effect. Trump did not do as well in some of these suburban areas, but ran up the numbers hugely in these more rural areas, as well as you can see in some of these more neighboring states. West Virginia, same dynamic. The state of Ohio, also the same dynamic. And what you see is that Republicans, although these are very sparsely populated areas, when Trump was able to drive up that turnout, that ended up being huge. So now we've kind of analyzed the regions of the state of Pennsylvania. You have Philadelphia County, a very blue area. You have Allegheny County, that is a second area, again, a very densely populated blue area. You see the three counties around Delaware County, Chester County, and Montgomery. That's a region of its own. You see Bucks County as well as some of the more working class areas, and then you see the rural areas. Those are the 5 types of areas in the state of Pennsylvania. There's one type shifting blue: Delaware County, Chester County, Montgomery County. Allegheny County is more or less the same, and the other 3 regions are all trending Republican. So what does that equate to in this election? Now, this is the map I built for the state of Pennsylvania. What you see right now is that, again, there's a lot of red in the state in the rural areas, and there's also a lot of blue in the more urban areas around Philadelphia. However, there are some major differences between my map and the 2020 map. Can you spot it? Now, this is a 2020 map. Oops. This is a 2020 map. As you can see, this is what it is. And this is a 2024 map. At least this is my prediction. What do you see? Well, there's two county swaps. You can see these two very light red blue counties that Joe Biden was able to win but was unable to gather a majority of the vote in. These are counties I expect to flip. Northampton County and Erie County are the two bellwether counties in the state, especially Erie County. Now, if you want to look at Erie County's history, it's quite interesting. In 2012, Obama won this county, as you can see, by a 16.1% margin, or nearly 20,000 votes. But then Donald Trump came around and he actually secured the county over Hillary Clinton by around a 2,000 vote margin. In 2020, Biden was able to take some of that advantage back, winning the county by 1%, or just over 1,000 votes. However, that being said, that does not necessarily mean the county is trending back blue, not even close. Remember, Joe Biden, the current president of the United States, was actually born in Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, and he has some deep roots with some of these white working class voters who voted for Trump in 2016 and for Biden in 2020. Someone like Kamala Harris simply does not have that advantage, which could make it very difficult for Harris to win a county like Erie, Northampton, and by extension, a lot of these white working class regions, which could be problematic. Now I'm going to show you some of the shifts I predict for the state of Pennsylvania. Now the map on your screen illustrates what I predict will happen to this massive swing state. As you can see, there's a lot of red trends and only a few blue trends. Again, as I have explained, I do expect the three corridor counties, Montgomery, Chester, and Delaware, where there's a lot of white-collar, more affluent type of voters, to end up trending blue as they have been over the past 2 decades or so. In fact, Chester County had historically been more Republican just about a decade or two ago before the Trump era. However, what you're going to see is that Donald Trump consistently to do better in some of these rural areas. Even in 2020, where Trump ended up losing a lot of support in Pennsylvania, his support actually grew a little bit in some of the more rural counties, suggesting this type of trend and phenomenon occurring. Also, I genuinely do believe that Kamala Harris will do worse than Joe Biden in Pennsylvania based on the polls. The fact that even though polls are historically inaccurate and overestimating Democrats, that she's still actually doing worse than what Joe Biden did in the actual results, plus the fact that she's not born in the state, and also the fact that she does not have a lot of these roots with these more white working class voters, which is a key to Pennsylvania. But now it's time to show my prediction. What I predict for Pennsylvania's presidential election. As of right now, according to my prediction, I do think that Donald Trump will carry the state of Pennsylvania by roughly 72,000 votes, or a 1.06% margin. That is roughly the same margin as Biden carried the state by back in 2020. So why do I think that? Well, one of the most important things is Philadelphia County. This is the core of Democratic support, and Democrats have been kind of deteriorating in this part of the state. You see that I do predict that Democratic vote share in terms of the state and their overall margin will decrease by around 33,000 votes. That's pretty significant considering the fact that Joe Biden only won the state by 81,000 votes in total. Additionally, these small Republican areas giving Trump a slightly larger margin does end up adding up to a pretty significant number. And finally, just the fact that someone like Kamala Harris will not be able to do well in an area like Lackawanna, in an area like Monroe, in an area like Lehigh. These small things do end up adding up, and that is why I do believe at this point in time that Donald Trump is favored to win Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral college votes. If you look at the numbers such as polling, it simply is not there for Kamala Harris. You look at some other factors as well. You look at the fact that, again, the state is definitely trending towards the Republican Party. You look at Kamala Harris's strengths and weaknesses. All those things are consistent with the prediction that Kamala Harris will end up losing the state of Pennsylvania. Now, obviously, things are fluid. Politics is something that changes rapidly. However, as of right now, I certainly do predict ultimately that Donald Trump will carry Pennsylvania over Kamala Harris in this November's election. Now, I could still be wrong, as evidenced by this 1.06% predicted margin. It's still a tight race, but I think it's a tight race that Donald Trump will ultimately prevail in. And with that, I do believe that Trump will probably win the presidency. It's going to be Trump winning all these red states and Pennsylvania, and presumably as well the state of Georgia, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona, with I predict the state of Michigan going to Kamala Harris. Anyways, thank you for watching today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.